The sun hadn't yet cleared the hills, but the sky was already painted with smoke. All across the blackened prairie, silence reigned, except for the slow crunch of hooves through ash and the low screech of a distant hawk. The wind carried the scent of burned flesh and pine, dry grass singed down to root. Ewan Grady rode through it like a man following ghosts. His hat sat low over his brow, shadowing eyes red from smoke and sleepless nights. Up ahead, the remains of a wagon train lay in ruin. Axles snapped, wheels half buried in soot. Buzzards circled overhead. One swooped low, flapping to perch on a crooked, while still smoldering with embers. Ewan dismounted. His boots sank into mud baked by fire and blood. He moved to the wagon, brushed aside scorched canvas. Inside, nothing but bones. Small ones. A child. He looked away. 3 days behind, he muttered, voice dry as sand. God help her if she's still alive. He reached into his coat pocket and drew out a square of fabric, pale blue cotton. A woman's bonnet, dirted by soot and stained in one corner with something dark. He pressed it to his nose, breathed deep, then tucked it away with trembling hands. Ewan Grady hadn't wept in years. Not through war, nor rebuilding, nor the long months of drought. But something inside him was cracking, splintering with each mile. He had built the ranch from nothing after the war. Chose the high grass country with Clara because she loved the wild wind and open sky. She planted lavender and sunflowers near the cabin, said the house needed color, said their life needed softness after all the hard. And then they came, riders in dust-covered coats, faces masked in cloth, torches high. He had been away trading salt beef. He was late returning. The barn was still smoldering when he arrived. He found Clara's shawl caught in a fence post, her bonnet near the spring. Blood trailed away into the hills. He followed, hadn't stopped since. The land turned mean fast. Rains came hard one night, washing the trail clean. He nearly drowned crossing the floodplain. His horse reared, spooked by lightning, and threw him into a tangle of barbed grass and river rock. He limped for 2 days after, his ribs aching with every breath. Later, he woke to a sound in the brush, low growls, yellow eyes. Prairie wolves. Not one, but 3. He drew his revolver, slow and steady, and fired just once. They scattered, but not far. They watched from a ridge as he built a fire. That night, he didn't sleep. Food ran thin. He gnawed on jerky, so hard it split a tooth. He drank creek water after boiling it with bitter pine needles. All the while, he kept Clara's ring around his neck, silver dulled with wear, strung on the same leather cord she used to tie her hair on summer days. He held it each night, whispered her name, tried not to think of what might have happened if he'd come home sooner. The dreams were the worst. Clara in the field, laughing, her skirt stained green from the waist down where she'd knelt to weed. A smudge of dirt on her cheek. He used to kiss it away. In his sleep, he'd hear her humming that old folk tune, Banks of the Sweet Primroses. He'd reach for her, and then wake to cold dirt and coyotes yowling. He remembered the last thing he said to her before leaving. I'll be home before dark. Won't be long. But night came early that day, and he hadn't seen her since. Ewan crested a ridge by midday. Below, an abandoned trading post sat crooked beneath a canopy of dying cottonwoods. The windows were broken. One door hung from a single hinge. Moss climbed the outer beams like a noose. He climbed down, rifle at his side. The wind shifted. Something metallic stung the air. Blood, old but still sharp. He stepped into the post's main room. Broken shelves, rat tracks, shattered glass. Behind the counter, in a darkened corner, he saw them. 3 burlap sacks, stained red. One leaned against a barrel. The other 2 sagged like dead things. He approached slow, fingers twitching on the stock of his rifle. He reached the first sack. It was empty, save for a scatter of beans and blood along the bottom. The second held something heavier. His hands trembled as he opened a knot. Inside, a pair of women's shoes, muddy and torn. One had a slash across the top, stained rust red. He reached in further. His hand came back clutching fabric, blue cotton, torn and frayed. Clara's shawl. He staggered back, dropped to a knee. On the far wall, something was written in charcoal. Words scratched in haste. Follow the river. She waits. He stood slowly, looked again at the sacks, the blood, the message. Then out the doorway, where a dry creek twisted toward the western hills. He tied Clara's shawl around his arm, mounted his horse. The wind blew through the burnt trees behind him, whispering low. He didn't look back. The land grew crueler with each mile. Trees thickened, turning the trail to shadow. Roots clawed from the earth like broken ribs. Ewan's horse began to stumble, its left leg dragging slightly, hooves chewed raw by stone. He let it now more than rode, his boots soaked through, his breath rasping in the cold. The sun had vanished hours ago behind storm-heavy clouds. No more birdsong, only the whistle of wind through pine needles and the distant sound of something too large to be alone. He reached for his canteen dry. His tongue clung to the roof of his mouth. Somewhere in the dark, a coyote cried. He found a clearing just before collapse. The earth there was flat, the remains of a fire pit still warm. He barely noticed. His knees gave, and he fell to one side. The last thing he saw before sleep took him was a flicker in the trees. Not flame. Eyes. Watching. When morning came, the world was sharper. Painful, but clean. The fire pit had been stoked again. Smoke curled into the morning fog. His coat was draped over him like a blanket. A strip of cloth bound the cut on his hand. His horse was still there, muzzling the frost-bitten grass nearby. Ewan sat up slow, then froze. Across from him, crouched on a stone, was a figure, bare-chested beneath a worn buffalo hide cloak, face marked with red clay. A feather threaded behind one ear. Motionless. The man didn't speak, didn't move, only watched. Between them, a small pot simmered. Rabbit stew. The scent nearly brought Ewan to tears. You did this. Ewan rasped, his throat like sandpaper. The figure gave no reply. Ewan reached for the pot. The man didn't stop him. They sat in silence while Ewan ate, grateful, unsure. When he looked up again, the man was gone. No foot false. No noise. But on the log beside him, a crude token had been left. A necklace made from bone and sinew. A single, human tooth dangled from the center. Later that day, they crossed paths again, near a gully where the wind funneled in like a scream. The man, Tala, emerged from the trees without warning. No gun drawn, no threat, just a slow, steady gesture toward a broken trail marker. They follow you, he said in perfect English. Traitors, men who take. Ewan squinted at the mark, a brand burned into the wood. The same one he'd seen on a crate at the trading post. A jagged horseshoe over a star. Bandits. Worse, Tallis said. He tossed you in a pouch. Inside, dried meat, and a shard of blue cloth with a lock of blonde hair. Clarice. Ewan's grip tightened. You seen her? Tala didn't answer. He turned and walked into the trees. Ewan followed. They moved like ghosts through the woods, stepping over fallen branches, ducking beneath low limbs. Tala never looked back. That night they made camp near the river, tucked beneath a fallen cedar. Neither spoke much, but their hands worked. Ewan gathering dry moss, Tala setting traps. Tala sharpened a blade with slow, rhythmic strokes. Ewan watched, then checked the bullets in his revolver. When Ewan offered him the last strip of salted pork, Tala accepted without a word. Ate beside him, eyes fixed on the fire. They didn't need to speak. Something had passed between them. Pain recognized, perhaps. In the middle of the night, horses screamed. Gunfire cracked through the trees. Muzzle flashes blinked in the dark. Ewan rolled, grabbed his rifle, fired into the shadows. One scream, then silence. Tala was gone. A figure lunged from the dark, blade raised. Ewan dropped him with a single shot to the chest. Then silence again. Tala emerged moments later, his face splattered in blood. His knife dripped onto the snow. Behind him, something groaned. They dragged a man into the firelight. Young, eyes wide with terror, shoulder leaking red through his coat. Ewan leaned close, pressed the barrel to the man's chin. Where is she? The man sobbed. She screamed for you, he rasped. Said your name. Told us not to open the sacks. What sacks? Ewan growled. She begged. Said you'd come. The man coughed blood. We left her with Josiah. Where? The man didn't answer. His eyes rolled back. Gone. Ewan looked at Tala. The scout only nodded once, then turned his gaze west, toward the canyonlands, toward the place where they trade the living like pelts, and where Clara, if she still breathed, waited. The land changed again. Hills sharpened into cliffs. The river narrowed and twisted through granite veins, bleeding south. Ewan and Tala rode in silence as the sun rose to a cold, distant height. Ahead, wedged between two crooked bluffs, sat the outpost, a half-collapsed sprawl of cabins, lean-tos, and fences made of bone. Even from a distance, it stank of death. Crows clustered on the rooftops. Skulls dangled from ropes strung like wind chimes. Deer, bison, and others human. One shack door was marked with a red handprint, smeared fresh. Tala's horse stopped without command. He dismounted first, eyeing the shadows with the instinct of prey turned predator. Ewan followed, every muscle taut. A man emerged from behind a crate of pelts. Long coat, wide hat, gray beard like mold across a crumbling face. He walked with a limp, dragging one leg through the gravel. His eyes glittered like coal in firelight. Josiah Black, Tala said under his breath. Merchant of lost things. Josiah grinned as he approached, arms spread like a preacher. Well now, Ewan Grady. Rancher. Vaman. Ghost chaser. Ewan didn't respond, just gripped the rifle slung over his back. Josiah tilted his head. Heard you was coming. Word travels fast in these parts. Even faster when the name's Clara. Ewan's knuckles whitened. Josiah gestured to a weather-worked barn behind the trading post. She was here. Pretty thing, even when broken. Sold her off to a fine buyer. But she didn't leave empty-handed. He gave a crooked smile. 3 sacks she left me. Strange gifts. Didn't dare open him. He turned to walk, limping toward the barn. Come now, rancher. Take them off, please. Ewan stiffened. Behind Josiah, from the barn shadow, came a sound, small, brittle. A voice, barely a whisper. Take them off, please. Ewan froze. He stepped forward, gun drawn. Tala stayed behind, eyes scanning the ridgeline. Watching. Always watching. Inside, the barn was dark, lit only by slats of sun slicing through warped boards. Dust floated like ash. And there they were. 3 burlap sacks, hanging from nails hammered into the support beam. They were damp, heavy. Ewan approached the first. Opened it. Bones, small ones. Maybe a dog. Maybe not. The second stank before he touched it. Rotting meat. Hair. Flies buzzed out when he pulled the cloth back. He gagged, but didn't stop. The third sack moved. He stared. It shook again, just slightly. A thud, then a whimper. Ewan reached out, hands trembling, breath shallow, and ripped it down. The sack hit the ground with a dull thud, then split. From inside, a woman's form spilled out, folded, shaking. Clara. She was thin as a wisp, her face bruised, lips cracked, eyes wide with horror, but alive. Barely. Her arms flailed until she saw him. Recognition bloomed slow like fire catching wind. Ewan, she rasped. He dropped beside her. I've got you. I've got you now. She clung to him, shaking uncontrollably. Her hands dug into his coat, as if terrified he might vanish. Her voice was hoarse, broken. They said you'd forget me. They said you'd never come. He held her against his chest, fingers cradling her skull like something sacred. I came. Clara. I came. She wept, quietly, the kind of weeping that comes after all the screaming's been done. Ewan cradled her in his arms as he knelt in the dust, rocking slightly. He tried to speak, but no words came. Just breath. Just grief. Just the weight of what she'd survived. Clara's arms wrapped around him tighter. Her nails scraped his back. She wouldn't let go, not even when he stood. She clung like a lifeline. Outside, the wind blew colder. Dusk had begun to gather around the trees. Tala entered the barn, quiet as a shadow. We must go, he said softly. Josiah sent a rider an hour ago. He's not just a trader. He's a net, a signal fire. You've stirred the hornets. Ewan nodded, his jaw clenched tight. He lifted Clara onto the horse, wrapping his coat around her shoulders. She stared at him, as if afraid to blink. Josiah stood at the fence, watching, smiling that crooked smile. "She ain't yours no more, rancher," he said. "She's been made property. You'll see." Ewan said nothing. He mounted up. Tala stepped beside him. Josiah's eyes narrowed. "There's a bounty, you know, for runaways." Tala stared back. "Then pray we never meet again." They rode out as the first stars pricked through the sky. Behind them, the barn creaked and the sacks swayed in the wind. Empty, but still heavy with the memory of what they'd held. The fog clung to the trees like old smoke, curling over rock and ravine as the trio rode through the high pass. Ewan held Clara steady on the saddle in front of him, one arm around her trembling frame. Her breaths were shallow, and her fingers clutched his coat like a child lost in a storm. Tala led the way, guiding them down crumbling deer paths no white man ever marked. His eyes scanned every ridge, every outcropping. Behind them, the sound grew. Howls, the baying of dogs, iron-shod hooves tearing through dirt and frost. The bandits had taken Josiah's bait. They were coming fast and coming hard. Ewan looked back once. Dust rising, shadows in motion. He kicked the horse faster, though the beast was half dead with exhaustion. Clara moaned, half conscious. Her lips bled from where she'd bitten them during the last fall. They broke out of the trees near a ledge where the world seemed to drop away. A canyon opened before them, deep and cruel. No bridge, no pass, just rock and wind. The river ran below, wide and violent, fed by snow melt. Tala turned, eyes sharp. No way through. Ewan stared down the edge. Then at Clara. He dismounted, lifted her down gently. His hands trembled. "You take her," he said, voice low. "Lakota lands just past the rim. If you follow the spine north, you'll make it." Tala frowned. "You'll come too." Ewan shook his head, unholstered his rifle, checked the chamber. "One bullet. They'll catch us all if we stay together. I hold 'em here. Buy you time." Clara stirred. "No, no. You said we go together." He leaned in, pressed his forehead to hers. "You will, just not with me," she sobbed, clutching him with the last of her strength. Don't leave me again." "I'm not. I'm sending you home." Tala took her, firm but gentle. Clara fought, weakly, but Ewan stepped back. The wind caught his coat, lifting it like wings. Then they were gone, disappearing into the rocks. And Ewan turned to face the coming dust. The first shot rang out before the riders even cleared the hill. Ewan dropped behind a boulder, returned fire, quick, precise. One rider screamed and fell. The rest spread wide. Gunfire cracked like thunder. Ewan moved with the calm of a man who had nothing left to lose. He ducked, fired again, then rolled across loose shale to higher ground. Another shot. Another rider down. But there were too many. A bullet grazed his arm. Another splintered stone near his head. He was running out of cover, out of time. Then silence. A figure stepped out from the dust. A massive bandit with a sawed-off in one hand and blood-slick boots. "Grady," he called. "Man of the hour. You really think she's worth all this?" Ewan raised his rifle. Click. Empty. He didn't flinch. The bandit raised his gun, but then choked, dropped to his knees. Tala appeared behind him, blade buried in his spine. The other shouted. Gunfire resumed. Tala tossed Ewan a pistol, his own from the ranch. Together they fired, fast and brutal. Dust swallowed them all. When the smoke cleared, only silence remained. Ewan lay slumped against the boulder, one hand over a wound in his gut. Tala knelt beside him. "You stayed," Ewan whispered. Tala nodded. "I don't leave what's worth saving." Ewan looked up at the sky. "She's alive. That's all I needed." Clara buried a bundle beneath a pine 3 days later, near the canyon rim. The grave was small, marked with stones. She placed the silver ring on top, his ring. Tala stood beside her. He tied feathers to a branch above, letting them dance in the wind. They didn't speak much. There were no words big enough. Later, as they crossed the river into Lakota land, Clara turned once more. The canyon behind them was quiet. A lone hat floated down the water below, stained dark, carried by the current, like a soul going home. Studio microphone. They thought he'd leave me in pieces. But he came, through fire, wolves, and men who sell the dead. If you've loved someone enough to be broken for them, you know. Bell. If this story struck your soul, like, comment, and subscribe to the Western Flame. Stories like this ride on hearts like yours.